Peace and good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you back into another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I'm your foul player. I want to make another Errol Spence video, and this is directly inspired to some of the comments I got in a video I did a couple days ago. And I guess people may have just found it. Or no, one person found it and made a comment. And he inspired me to make a video. Before I even begin, I want to apologize for some of the rattling you may hear in the car because I'm carrying a set of drawers that I bought for my niece. But moving on, the reason that I'm making this video, somebody in the comments left something alluding to the fact of Bud Crawford being chased down by Shawn Porter, in addition to the other people from the PBC, like Keith Thurman, and that the reason that these fights not happening, or the reason that these fights didn't happen, was due to Bud Crawford being scared. But I think that as a whole, like, you know, talking point is kind of like revisionist history. But also, to bring things back into a current affair, like a lot of people are making it seem as if Shawn Porter is in active pursuit and doing everything he can to chase Bud Crawford down. I think he's doing a nominal, average pursuit, maybe lackluster pursuit of Bud Crawford, but I don't think he's putting on like this tremendous effort. I mean, if that's what you call, if Shawn Porter's call-out game of Bud Crawford, then that's the problem with boxing, is that like these guys are lacking as far as calling people out, or that the fans give too much credit for minimal effort of these boxers pursuing fights that we want to see, i.e. like mentioning Bud Crawford once or twice a year for Errol Spence, you know, is just good enough, or saying that, you know, Errol Spence making offers through non-contracts is Errol Spence wanting the smoke, or, you know, which a term that I'm beginning to hate. One, I mean, like, just to get that out of the way, I think that Shawn Porter's efforts in looking for a Bud Crawford fight, as it pertains to like the stuff that us the fans are getting, and like the trickle down, like whether it be through the media, through the internet, like I'm not seeing much, and I think neither are you who disagree with me. Like, you know, I'm not seeing like a crazy effort made by Shawn Porter. So I mean, I think we should all put that to rest. But another thing too, and the main reason I want to make this video, is because Shawn Porter, to be frank, was an on the outside looking in boxer until he fought Errol Spence and gave Errol Spence a good fight. But now, like that, he did give Errol Spence a good fight. You're seeing a lot of Errol Spence's fans talk about Bud Crawford fighting Shawn Porter more than they talk about Bud Crawford fighting Errol Spence. Like, never have I seen that in the history of boxing. Even when Deontay Wilder, or like the anti-fan base of Deontay Wilder, the people that were trying to play protection for AJ, were mentioning Dillian White as the fight that Bud Crawford, Dillian White as the fight that Wilder should take on before he fights Anthony Joshua. It wasn't to this degree. I mean, I think a lot more people were pushing for Wilder and AJ to fight straight up, and then you had a little sub faction of fans from like the UK and like people that were, you know, really pulling on the AJ nuts, like that were like throwing up the Dillian White like fight for Wilder rather than the AJ fight. And, you know, ultimately we saw what happened. I mean, like, you know, we had all these people proposing that Anthony Joshua fight or that Wilder should fight Dillian White. And Wilder, Dillian White, and Anthony Joshua all lost since that time. So now, is an Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder fight big as it could have been? I don't think so. And if it, and the thing is too, we can't go on the standards of what these promoters want, which these promoters want the maximum amount of casual fans to be somewhat interested in the fight before we get these big fights. Casual fans aren't going to be interested anymore in Errol Spence and Bud Crawford when they're fighting the likes of Sean Porter or Dennis Ugas. They could come into the ring with 9 belts. Nobody's going to give a shit. That fight is not going to get much bigger. I've always said that every fight they fight after this, whoever's the victor, is going to be a big fight. But right now, those dudes, stop fronting. And it's not even that those dudes are fronting. It's that you, the fan, especially the Errol Spence fans, are, really paying protection, and I understand if Errol Spence had big shit going on, and he was selling out stadiums, but now people want to switch the standards of what a big pay-per-view is. Now 300,000 is a big pay-per-view. Now, somewhat selling out Dallas practice facility stadium against Mikey Garcia is a tremendous fight. Not even factoring the fact that he fought a guy 2 weight classes below him, in addition to the fact that Mikey Garcia was part of the driving factor in that, as far as the ticket sales and as far as the driver for that fight. And that wasn't even a humongous fight. Nobody gave a shit about that fight. And some asshole's gonna come and say, "Oh, well, this fight sold 400,000 pay-per-view." I don't even know if it sold 400,000 pay-per-view. And if it did, I dispute that number. Again, if somebody could give me tangible proof of Errol Spence having these massive pay-per-views, I'll throw up cash myself. Throw the bet up, and I'll pay you out. I've given out where I chill in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn as we speak. Ain't no ducking for me. I'll pay out fair and square. Meet you where you want. But Errol Spence isn't this big thing where he has these other big ventures going on, and that's the reason why those other big ventures are a good excuse to not fight Bud Crawford. Especially Ugas. Honestly, guys, in spite of Ugas having a belt, that fight is worse than Danny Garcia. And to anybody who I throw that challenge out as far as with these pay-per-view sales, more relegated and keeping a keen eye on the Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence fight, and the people that want to say that fight sold 300,000. I don't know one soul that bought that fight, and I live in the middle of the Puerto Rican heartland of New York. Nobody watched that fight. And I'm a Danny Garcia fan for other reasons, not because for what he did at 140, and because I like his dad, because he reminds me of my dad, and because he looks like my son. But besides that, Danny Garcia is not much respected in Puerto Rican fan base. If that was the case, he would have been selling out MSG. To sell out MSG as a New York Spanish fighter, you don't even got to be Puerto Rican. It's a pretty easy feat, and you go in the first week of July for the Puerto Rican parade, and you sell out the MSG guaranteed. Danny Garcia was fighting in Brooklyn, not MSG. MSG is basically a third of the allure of fighting in the Barclays Center, which is right there. You can see it where that stupid brown building is beyond the bend. Has 1/3 of the allure, and I'm on 4th Avenue if you think I'm bullshitting. Is 1/3 of the allure of fighting in MSG. MSG is a big feat. Barclays is a okay feat. It's nice, but he's not even selling out Barclays in the heartland of Puerto Rico, or the secondary home of Puerto Rico, which is New York City. in spite of that, I mean, if you want to say Danny Garcia is a big sell or a big seller, I guarantee, like, I even if he did sell 300,000, which he didn't, but that's still not big numbers. So stop fronting with all this shit. Like, and Ugas fighting Errol Spence is a way lesser fight in spite of the belts. I don't care if it's a unification. Like, that was a gift belt that Ugas won. But unification or not, that's still a whack ass fight. Ugas ain't no top seller like that. Like, I mean, like, does Ugas have some skill? Yeah, but I mean, are you gonna stop your weekend to see Ugas fight? Absolutely not. I wouldn't stop a Tuesday to watch Ugas fight. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Stop defending these boxers, man. Like, make them make boxing great again. You, the fan, are doing a shitty job at making boxing great again because you're not pressuring anybody to fight. But us, the real fans, could make boxing great again by pressuring these fights to happen and making fights that real boxing fans want to see happen. Don't ever settle for, like, your boy being pussy or something, and then you say, oh, well, like, he got startled or something. Nah, if you're a pussy, you're a pussy, bro. Like, straight up. I mean, I've like, not every one of my friends was a warrior like that. I mean, like, but don't go acting like a Braveheart, and then you ain't built like that. And, like, Errol Spence is giving you every indication that he's not built like that. And a lot of dudes, like, when you get, like, when they're not in the dirt and they're not having to chase no more, they become complacent. They become lackluster. And you're seeing that with Errol Spence. Not that Errol Spence ever did no... I mean, Errol Spence doesn't strike me as a guy who was doing hood stuff, like, throughout his life. He's not, like, a tough guy like that. Like, in the hood sense, if you will. But, like, this boxing thing, I mean, like, you like to see, like, that take no shit attitude, and Errol Spence doesn't strike me as that. I mean, if he had that take no shit attitude, honestly, at this point, and I gave him credit for having a take no shit attitude and wanting all the smoke, if you will, but that was probably a marketing ploy. Like, I mean, it was largely built on the fact that Keith Thurman didn't want to fight. And frankly, I mean, that could have been done, like, through the promoter, like through Al Heyman and PBC. Like, they could have made that fight happen. They didn't. And now we have a fighter who's not on PBC, which is going to be the biggest fight, bigger than Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence. And I just don't see the any good sign or any good indication that we're going to get that fight. If I had to put money on it, I'd say we're not going to get that fight. But let me know what you guys think. With that, I'm out. Thank you for checking me out. Peace.